docker compose.yml file. So in this particular session, I'm going to first perform a task without using Docker Compose. And then the same task will be performed using Docker Compose to show you how beneficial it is to make use of Docker Compose rather than using Docker run command. But yes, let me be fair. What we can achieve using Docker Compose, we can also achieve without Docker Compose, but we will have to write a lot of commands in proper sequence. That means basically a catalog of commands has to be created when there are multiple images involved. We are not going to discuss multiple containers or multiple images in this particular session. We will leave that for next session. But right now we will begin with a very small example. So let's say I go to command prompt. I go to my folder docker demos, and here I create a new directory. Let's say docker compose demo. And I would like to create a new .NET application here. .NET new, and that too I want to have a MVC project. Let me also give a name to this MVC project now, that is Hello Web App. So I'm going to have a Hello Web App, a simple Hello Web App project created successfully. And we can obviously do a simple build and run. And we can combine both build and run into single statement. Docker run. Sorry, build .NET run. Okay, I have to actually change the folder Hello Web App and say Docker run. Oh, .NET run. Not Docker run. It should be .NET run. You have to move to the Hello Web App folder and execute .NET run. And you know that .NET run is going to create a Kestrel server. It is also going to give us the URL. You can always use this URL, put it in the browser and execute. You get the default page. Fair enough. We are not interested in the content of the application at this point of time. Just the default page when we get, it's more than sufficient. Good enough. Now look, let's close this. Let's stop this. Now I would like to build a container. Now to build, I want to build an image through which a container can be created. So what is the first thing I'll need to do? Create a Docker file. So let's go to code. And here we will create a Docker file. Add Docker file. Now what should be there in the Docker file? I want to create it from Microsoft/.NET, of course 2.1 -SDK. That's the tag I want to make use of. Yes, first let us set the working directory, which is my /app, and I would like to copy all the content from current directory into the new container directory. Just say yes. And after I copy, I would like to do a .NET restore. So run .NET restore. So everything copied will be restored here. Now we may want to actually copy star.csproj and restore that alone, so that every time restore command may not execute if I make changes to only my CS file. Then I copy everything else. And yes, now we would like to do .NET publish. Let's say the release version we want, and the output folder is out. Now change the working directory to /app/out and then execute the command entry point wherein I would like to execute .NET and my project name, which is hello web app.dll. Fair enough. My Docker file is ready. So now can I use Docker build and Docker run? Let's do that also. So go to the terminal window and execute Docker build -t. Let's say I give Sandeep Soni / hello web app and dot my context, Docker file context, which is current directory. Enter. It is going to take a while and it is going to download all the required missing images, build the new image by name Sandeep Soni / hello web app. So I'm then going to use that subsequently next step for running my application. All the packages are downloaded because of .NET Restore. All these are getting downloaded into the new image which is getting constructed. And as per the previous discussion, there will be intermediate containers which are actually created, in which all these packages will be downloaded, and those intermediate containers will be committed to create an image, and eventually the temporary intermediate containers will be destroyed. Then the subsequent image is created. Like that, a layer of images gets created. So all this we have discussed well in detail earlier. That's not the point of discussion at this point of time. Just saying that because we are waiting for the command to complete. Docker run, and we have the final 7 and 8 step working directory and entry point mentioned. That's it. After this, I'm going to execute Docker run command to create a container instance out of that particular image which is just now created. In the output folder, the DLL file will get generated. And that's it. We are done. Now it's time to execute Docker run. I would like to give -rm so that the container gets cleared once the application terminates. We would probably want to do interactively, so -it. And most important thing is we'll have to mention the port number. And I would like to do 8080 on host mapped to port number 80 in the container. And yes, Sandeep Soni / hello web app. So let's create the Docker container instance. And environment is ready. So now you can actually go to the browser and type there port number 80. But in our case, we'll have to give http:/localhost:8080 because we are in the host. And it's working fine. So absolutely no problem. You can terminate this. So till here, it's nothing new. It has been all repeated for you. So I just press Ctrl C, I shut down and I'm out. Now my requirement is what I have achieved using Docker run command. That means this command. I would like to achieve the same thing using Docker compose.yaml file. So coming to our handout, we have already completed till step 6. Now I would like to do this. Edit Docker compose.yaml file. So I go to the project. In the same folder, I'm adding now Docker compose.yml. And in this, I'm now supposed to write certain declarative syntax. So first we should begin with version. The current version which is supported is 3.4. You can go to Docker documentation, Docker Hub documentation and figure out whatever is the latest. After that, the next thing which we are supposed to give here is services. Now remember, in YAML file, every space is going to be important. So just see that when you press enter, now you press tab. At least one space you have to give. That implies that whatever we are going to write now, that is going to become immediate child of service. So my requirement here is I want to have hello web app. All the configuration for hello web app. Colon. Again, I go to next line and press tab. So this configuration now is for hello web app, whereas this is for services. So what is that we should give? First thing I would like to do is which image should execute. See, ultimately we are trying to convert this run command into a YAML file. So here the first thing we should give is image colon and give the image name. So in my case it is Sandeep Soni slash hello web app. Enter. Exactly below I am supposed to specify the ports. This one. So we can probably have multiple port mapping. Right now in this example there is only one, but if needed there can be multiple ports also. So ports is an array. So whenever we have an array, we should probably mention P. Oh sorry, ports is not an array. For ports we need to give only one port, which is 8080 mapped to 80. So that is ports. And that's it. I can say this is simple. So as a replacement to this, we have this section, and a replacement to image name, we have this section. So this is a very simple and smallest YAML file. I save this now. Now to execute this, what we have to do is simply write docker, same directory, wherever we are, in that same directory execute docker compose up. But before I execute docker compose up, let me see if there are any containers. Yes, there is some container. Let me terminate that. Docker rm424. I cannot remove because it's running. So let me stop that first. So that container is stopped. Now we can remove. -a. Just say docker container prune. All the containers thereafter will get terminated. So docker ps -a should get me nothing. No containers are available now. Not even in stopped state. So now I simply execute docker compose up. That's it. Being in the same folder where we have docker compose.yml, just say docker compose up. Enter. And you see that various series of actions will happen. Oh yes, as I expected, I had a doubt. So this is actually array only. This is not one. It should be hyphen. So when we give hyphen here, whenever the value of this is supposed to be an array of values, then you are supposed to begin with hyphen symbol. So this is the first value. Like that, in next line you can put one more hyphen and one more value. That will become another array. But in the same array, if you want to put the value, you can put here 8081 colon maybe 443. In case you want to go for something like HTTPS mapping, if you want some error. Yeah, just put hyphen once again. So whenever it is array, begin with hyphen. Whenever it is just a key value, you don't have to do that. And everything matters. Every space matters. Save it. Now run the same command docker compose up. It should execute without any error. And you see here, creating hello web app underscore one, attaching whatever. What I would like to do is, in a parallel window, I would show you the output of Docker PS, and you should see that there is a container instance created where 8080 is mapped to 80, whereas 8081 is mapped to 443, that is for HTTPS. And we have a container name hello web app underscore one created. So everything has been done for us exactly the same way what was done through Docker run command. Right now we did not achieve something great because there is only one container, but imagine lot of configuration happening through Docker compose file, the length of the Docker compose file increasing, and multiple containers are going to come into the scene. Yes, you can always go to the browser once again and type same story localhost colon 8080, and you should still get the same output. Localhost colon, and we should still get the default page. That's it. You can now execute I can just press Ctrl C first, terminate gracefully. If I press once more Ctrl C, forced termination will happen. And now let us look at the containers. Gone. You can also execute docker compose up -d. -d is going to actually run in detach mode. So docker compose up will create the container and we'll again get back the prompt here, so that any other command if needed we can execute now. And you'll see here docker ps has the image. Now if you want to stop this, all the containers, right now only one, but imagine in future we'll have many, just say docker up compose down. Docker compose up, opposite is now docker compose down. So it has stopped the container and it has even removed the container. Actually there is something called as network also which was created, even that is removed. Yes, Docker networking is going to be discussed in the next chapter. And now if I see Docker PS, you will see nothing. It's all blank. -a, nothing. Whatever was created, it's all stopped and removed. So Docker compose up, Docker compose down works like this. Right now, here I have given only image and port. But if needed, I can also perform the build command through Docker compose itself. See, earlier we had two commands, docker build and docker run. Both the things we can configure it in the Docker compose file itself. So if I want to do build, come to the YAML file, go to exactly the same level of image and type there build. Enter, tab. The context we will have to specify. What is the docker build command? Docker build -t and then the image name. Image name we have already given, so we don't have to repeat it. But after that we need to give the context, and that context is here. And also something very important, to Docker we have to mention where is the Docker file. Right now in the current directory only we have the Docker file, so just mention Docker file like this, ./Docker file. Problem is over here, context colon, just the Docker file is sufficient, that's it. So current context, and this is the Docker file which is going to be used by Docker Docker compose up. So when I say Docker compose up, using this Docker file, first it is going to build an image by this name, and then that image is also going to get instantiated on so and so port number. All will happen through a single command now by just executing docker -compose up. And that's it. What you have to notice is the docker compose build command did not execute actually. It did not do anything. This particular thing did not impact anywhere in my execution of docker compose. Because the image was already existing, this command did not bother to rebuild the image. So in case you want to rebuild the image, just terminate this first by pressing Ctrl C. You have to give the option -- build. So this will ensure that the image is going to be built for us. So you see now, it is forcing the building of image. And after the image is built, the same story, the run command will execute. So what we have concluded here is Docker Compose has really reduced our efforts in building an environment for execution of our application. Though right now in this particular example I have demonstrated using only one container, the real usage of it you will appreciate only when we move to multiple containers. And that is what we are going to do in the next chapter. So let me just wait for this to complete, show you the output in browser and freeze this particular session here. As it is doing in the background, let me show you all the steps are available in the handout for you to practice. So step 1, all this run command, Docker file. You first do it through build and run. Eventually we want to replace this build and run both, but one by one. First time we replaced run command through this YAML file where we mentioned only the image and port. Thereafter we wanted to, I have also shown you -d option. You can put Docker Compose logs to read all the logs which are generated in case you want to. Docker Compose down I have shown you for basically stopping and removing all the container instances which are created. Then I added this build section to the YAML file so that when I execute Docker Compose up, we can have both Docker run and build actions performed together as one unit. And of course, you can also give this extra option build so that you can force the building of an image when Docker Compose is executing. Even though the image is existing, it will rebuild so that any modification changes to the code are automatically accommodated. So that's what we have covered in this particular session. So all the 8 steps are completed. And now attaching the container instance, and thereafter the story is same. Your web server is up and running. You can go to the browser and continue. Very important. I would request you to create this setup and proceed to next video because I'm going to use this setup as an example, base example for building on top of it about how to work with multiple containers in the same application. Thank you.